Yes. Yes, it's over. Power Hour Hogs. Give it up for your athletic director, Hunter Yurachek. He did it. He was this thing that Chad Morris wasn't. Decisive. The final straw had been pulled. When you lose to Western Kentucky, a team that lost to the University of Central Arkansas, you get blown out by them, by your former quarterback, sayonara. I don't care if the buyout was $13 gazillion. Get rid of him. That was horrible. And that is something you got to love about Hunter Yurachek. He got rid of Mike Anderson at the right time. Obviously, Eric Musselman's going to be a big star. And to me, that was one of Chad Morris's biggest, and I mean absolutely hugest flaws as a coach. He was indecisive. So, before we get going, in the comment section below, what was Chad Morris's biggest fault? And I do believe decisiveness is a huge, huge, huge flaw. But we're not talking about two simple words that really started the unraveling at Arkansas. John Chavis, the Chief. What a horrible hire that was. It made no sense at the time. And I understand, Arkansas was scrambling. They had just hired the athletic director. A few days later, you hire a football coach in Chad Morris, who wasn't Hunter Yurachek's guy. Chad Morris didn't have a defensive coordinator he brought with him from SMU. And Arkansas, for years, as we all know, has struggled defensively. So what do? You bring in the guy with the best resume who was unemployed in John Chavis. But he had been awful. He had been declining this past decade. He had already failed at Texas A&M. And the biggest problem was that he did not philosophically fit in with the rest of the coaching staff at Arkansas. He didn't. He was an older guy past his prime, while the rest of the coaches were mostly younger guys on the ascent. And you could just tell the communication was never there. In John Chavis's defenses, they never get you a big stop to close the game. It's never easy. Never good third and fourth quarters with John Chavis as your DC. And you saw it year in and year out. The Ole Miss game last year, and the Colorado State game last year, and the Vanderbilt game last year. And what we saw this year, the defense didn't improve. So much focus right now is on Chad Morris, and deservingly so. But John Chavis was an awful fit. Where should it be? Should it be on the sideline or in the booth? What does he give you in recruiting? Very little. And obviously schematically and developmentally, it wasn't there. And yeah, Arkansas lacked talent. We could talk about that all day. But they also really lack a lot in schematics. So giving up 65 to Alabama, no big deal. But all the other games get blown out by San Jose State on simple deep routes, really? So let's not understate how big of a problem John Chavis was. And whenever you're rebuilding and you're having to really restructure what you're doing at a program like Arkansas, you got to have great assistants. And I don't know so much about the position coaches, but the coordinators at Arkansas was arguably the worst group in the SEC. Whether you're talking about Chavis or Joe Craddock, who was a 30-something offensive coordinator, who obviously this job was a little too big for him as well. Now, let's not forget that Chad Morris is a head hog. He is the one making $3.5 million, or was making $3.5 million to be the head coach. So yeah, most of the blame should be on him. And to me, decisiveness is what ultimately unraveled him as a coach. When you come in high energy, left lane, hammer down with all these hokey dokey phrases, you can't just change who you are just a few games in just because things aren't going right. You've got to be that person. It is so important as a coach to not only evolve, but also be consistent in some things that you do. And Chad Morris honestly didn't know who he was. I remember this very clearly. When Chad Morris was announced as a coach, they brought the video camera crew in, and he spoke to the team about who they were going to be as a team. And he said that they were going to be aggressive, they were going to be analytically driven, and all these fancy words. And They were the exact opposite of that. And this should be a memo to all coaches out there. Be aggressive, be decisive. Because if you're not, you're going to have a team that doesn't believe in your message. You ever notice what PJ Fleck is doing at Minnesota? He has a consistent message. He's aggressive. He's no nonsense in a lot of ways, and he's also player friendly in a lot of ways. We don't really know who Chad Morris is other than a guy who was kind of an amoeba, who didn't really know what he was doing. And I go back to the first time I really saw Arkansas unravel was a Colorado State game. You don't go for it on 4th and inches? Really? When you had been running the football nonstop, you punt it back, and that's what led to the Colorado State comeback because John Chavis can't close out an opponent. So all the punts on 4th down and plus territory, all the BS about, well, we're the Razorbacks and this is who we are, when you would never ever name a starting quarterback. You would go back and forth on your quarterbacks while at the same time not developing them at a high enough level to compete. And you're the offensive guru. Don't give me that the quarterbacks weren't all that great. I mean, Ty Story and Cole Kelly, albeit against weaker opposition, they both looked okay. There's no way Ben Hicks and Nicholas Starko are as bad as they are right now. There's no way. There's no way that you're 0 for 4 where all 4 of the quarterbacks look exponentially worse than what they used to. It's downright insanity. So there's so many different things that was wrong about the Chad Morris tenure. Don't undersell the John Chavis factor. Don't undersell the assistance factor. And Chad Morris did some good things in recruiting, but that's about it. He was overwhelmed. The video that we did, our last video, regarding another case of indecisiveness, such as nearly burning guys' red shirts on kneel down snaps. Seriously, go watch the last video if you didn't see it. But it blows my mind how bad this guy was. And I'll end on this. Do not forget that this year, this schedule for the Arkansas Razorbacks, for anyone out there that believed that Chad Morris deserved another year and that Arkansas's athletic program could have saved some money from not paying the buyout by bringing him back another year, for those out there that believe that, and you're on the fence, we never really gave this guy a chance, let me remind you that Arkansas' schedule this year was the easiest schedule that they've ever had. The easiest since they've joined the SEC West. You had 4 non-conference, non-Power 5 teams that were all 3 games under 500 last year, and all 4 of those games were in Fayetteville. You got to play Kentucky, which had to play their 3rd-string quarterback, okay? You got Ole Miss in a rebuilding year. Mississippi State has been awful under Joe Moorhead. There is no excuses for Arkansas to be as bad as they are. They're more than likely going to end the season as a 2-win team. The ESPN, FPI, and SP Plus had Arkansas at around a 3% chance of finishing a 2-win team again. A 3%. It was an astronomical percentage for Arkansas to have the season that they had this year. So it was time. Let's close a chapter on this. And coming up in our next video, we're going to run through some candidates that Arkansas is going to search for. It is Power Hour Hogs. Once again, what is your biggest reason why the Chad Morris regime fell flat? Okay, let's connect on social media. I am at Carter the Power. I got a show on Thursday in Little Rock at the Joint and a St. Jude benefit in Batesville on Friday. And before we get out of here, Bug the dog. There you go. Some positivity for you.